I mean, that question, Justina, is probably at the core of success. In other words, if you said to me, forget about everything else, Paul, one thing, the most important thing for students at all case study levels to do, I would say mock exams, because we're all familiar with the old adage or the saying, practice makes perfect. So really, Justina, I'm not saying anything that anybody who's listening to this recording doesn't know. Everybody's heard this for a very, very long time. But unfortunately, in my experience of dealing with both the SCS exam and, excuse me, the MCS exam, what some students do, particularly students that don't get through the exam, is they don't practice enough. In other words, they don't do mock exams. Now, let's just say that we have a student and that student said, okay, I will do the mock exams. You know, what other advice would we give them? What I would say to them is, okay, do enough mock exams, certainly at least three, but also get them marked, okay? Now, in terms of the marking, you know, obviously, you know, we have a marking service at Practice Test Academy, and, you know, we offer a marking service. I'm not suggesting that the students, Justina, should get them marked just so that we can have sales revenue. I'm suggesting that they should get them marked because what they need is feedback from someone independent of them. They need an independent person reading their script and making sure that it makes sense. You know, it's very difficult, in my opinion, Justina, to mark a script on your own because we're biased, aren't we? We may be biased against ourselves, or we may be biased for ourselves. It's very difficult to get it right smack bang in the middle right. Whereas for an independent marker, someone who doesn't know you and simply is paid to mark your script, I think it just gives you a lot of added value. Does that answer your question? Basically, practice makes perfect.
Exactly. And also if you compare, for example, the examiners are also, you know, they are independent people. So, I mean, getting your scripts marked by a professional marker, it's exactly the same thing as if the examiner marked it. I mean,
yeah, that's right. I mean, doing well in exams, whether or not it's the MCS or the SCS or the OCS, is about recreating the conditions that you're going to face on the day. In other words, doing mock exams under timed conditions, yeah, without interruption and fully concentrating. And what you'll find is that if you follow through on that, you'll find that you should see improvements mock on mock. You should see yourself getting better. Your first mock will probably be not that great. Your second mock should be a little bit better. Your third mock should be even better. So, you know, it's very much common sense. I think, do you know one of the problems sometimes, Justina, is that, you know, students, unfortunately, in my experience, and I've dealt with a lot of them, and I've dealt with a lot of fantastic students and clever students and students who are researchers who manage to get through after one or two attempts. But the problem is that there are some students, yeah, let me choose my words carefully. There are some students who are unwilling to experience the pain of the mock exam in order to achieve success. Now, that is a very risky business. If we're not going to practice like we want to perform on the day, then when we walk into the exam, let's say this November 17, when we walk in there, if that is the very first time that the student has experienced a real MCS or SCS exam, then I'm not saying that they're going to fail, but I'm saying it's going to be much more difficult for them if they haven't experienced or had that experience. You know, it's really common sense. We've got to practice like we mean to perform on the day, and that means doing mock exams, hopefully getting them marked independently and looking at that feedback and learning from mistakes. You know, just like we all did when we started riding a bike. Yeah, I fell off 100 times, but I kept getting back on that bike because I wanted to ride that bike. Eventually, I got it right. Now I know how to ride the bikes. But if I hadn't had those experiences and bruised knees and bruised heads, I wouldn't have learned. Now, I know that's a very silly analogy, a silly comparison, but it's true. It's true. You must practice to get better. Does that make sense, Justina?
Yeah, definitely. Also wanted to ask, why do you think our marking service by you and by our team is different compared to what students can find anywhere on the internet or in a classroom?
Yeah, I mean again, that's a good question. It's easy, I think, in tuition to suggest this or that. In other words, it's easy for BPP, for example, to say that they're better than Kaplan. It's easier for Stranti to say that they're better than BPP, etc., etc. So, unfortunately, talk is cheap. But what I will tell you is this: is that I have a lot of experience in marking, particularly CIMA papers, and indeed other papers as well. And from my experience, I think there are, what shall I say, different levels of marking. In other words, different qualities. A bit like everything else. I mean, certain people mark in this way, other people mark in this way. Personally, I think that marking is one of the most important things that I do. Yeah, because marking really, for me, tests whether or not students have understood what I've taught them. And I find myself over the years doing a lot of marking in classes, yeah, because I like to see if the students have been listening, if they understand the topic, etc., etc. So for my view, or in my view, in relation to an answer to this question, we don't want to compare ourselves necessarily to any one specific other tuition body. What I would say is this, is that what we produce, or what we will produce for case study students this November, is an annotated script. In other words, students will be submitting their PDF to us, they'll be scanning it or sending it through to us by email for marking. We will provide them with an annotated script. In other words, they will get back a line by line, paragraph by paragraph, breakdown of comments on everything that they do on every page. Now, that's one thing, Justina, as you will well know, that differentiates us from other people. Because
I can actually use my experience here as well, because as you know, some time ago I actually passed the SCS exam myself, and I also used the marking service, and I can tell you that sometimes the feedback I got was just like, it was very, very generic.
Yeah, well, I think that we're always best to sort of undersell, yeah, and over deliver. I like that phrase. The idea that we would say, well, come and try us. Maybe we're fantastic. Maybe we're better than other people. Maybe we're not. I would suggest to students, why don't they try our marking service? Why don't they try it? Why don't they try us? And why don't they try another marking service? It's not overly expensive to get one or maybe even two mock exams marked. So I think that they should try us, outside of the annotated script that they will get back, that I think is so important for students. Because I think if it was me, yeah, and I was doing the SCS exam or the MCS, if I was getting a script back, in other words, what I had typed, and I get it back, and it's actually not marked. In other words, part of what I'm paying for in a given tuition company is to have the script returned, but it's blank, yeah. And then I get something outside of that, a grid or whatever. Then for me, it's not as helpful. Maybe other people think differently, but I personally feel that a marking service needs to have, or needs to produce and return to the student, yeah, a script that is hand marked, yeah, and along with that, a detailed guide. I call it a marking grid, and I've worked on this marking grid for several years, really since the case study exams came in. So I think my marking grid is pretty good. Is it better than other tuition bodies? Well, I'm not going to say that. All I would say to students who are watching this video is why don't you try it out and see what you think? And I think that you'll find that the performance of our marking team, including me, I'm going to be doing a lot of marking at Practice Test Academy as well. I think it's pretty good, but they can judge for themselves. And if they feel that it's substandard or subpar, then please let us know. But I don't think we're going to hear from them. I think they'll be very happy. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was very lovely to talk to you. If you are interested in more of the videos, please leave a comment below. Have a nice day. Bye.